Welcome to Breakdown. It's January 6th, 2023. The first year of 2023, you got the Arkansas kid right here and the sports savant right there. We're going to break down SEC and Big Ten. JJ, you ready to do it?
Yeah, New Year, same podcast. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, JJ, there was a couple of football games last week.
There were.
The playoffs, Michigan, TCU. Did the better team win that game?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at all the components that make up a team, I would say yes. I think Michigan is the more talented team, but I think TCU is undoubtedly the better coach team. Michigan has lost their last 5 bowl games, and like they didn't stick to their disciplines. They didn't stick to the zone runs that they had been utilizing. They tried to be too cute and try to out trick their opponent. All that downtime was not good for Michigan, and that opened the door for TCU to just do what they did, and they didn't trail for 1 second in the game.
What was the play of that game? Or was there a D play? Or were there multiple plays?
Oh yeah, there were multiple plays. I mean, the last pick six. So at the end of the game, when Michigan had the ball down 6 and Jim Harbaugh wasn't calling timeouts, that was a big moment, pivotal moment in time. But when they went for the touchdown, when it was 0-0, they tried to do the Philly special, and the Philly special does not work. Like the reason it worked so well against New England and when the Philadelphia Eagles did it against the Patriots in the Super Bowl was because it hadn't been done in so long.
Okay, now what is this play that you just described?
The Philly special is when the quarterback hands it off to like a receiver that's doing a jet sweep, and then the quarterback goes out for the pass, and then there's another receiver that comes around and he hands it back off, and then you try to throw it to the quarterback for a touchdown.
Okay.
And the success rate on that play, like the last 5 times I've seen it in the NFL and in college, it has not been successful.
On that particular play, would you have called a different play, or
Yeah.
would you have kicked the field goal?
I would have called a different play because I believe in my defense.
Okay.
I would have called a different play. But that's the thing. They took like a 5-yard loss on that. Like
Yeah.
I would, when you're at the 1-yard line, I would absolutely do that because the offense is at such a disadvantage in that respect. But yeah, I mean that was one of the pivotal moments in time. JJ McCarthy's first pick six, I thought, was a very pivotal play. His second pick six was also pivotal.
Michigan, prior to that game, they had only turned the ball over about 5 times the whole season.
Yeah, and
then three times
and 2 of them directly. I mean, not only directly led to touchdowns, were touchdowns on that same exact play. So it was just
one of them prevented a touchdown.
Yeah. So I would say Michigan did a lot of things.
So would you say TCU got lucky?
Yeah, I mean, you can't say that they didn't get lucky, but I do think that they are the better team because of the coaching gap Sonny Dykes was able to show. What did TCU go last year in their last season with Gary Patterson?
Ooh, they were not 500, I don't believe.
They were not bowl eligible.
Yeah.
They won like 3 or 4 games. This is Sonny Dykes' first year. Last year he was in Dallas at SMU. Now he's in Fort Worth at TCU, and I just think like
in the championship.
I remember in one of the podcasts we talked about, you were very impressed with how quickly they got the field goal unit out. And I just feel like they're a disciplined, well-coached team where everyone knows their role and everyone executes their role. And I do not think that was true for Michigan. Michigan had a lot of disadvantages. Donovan Edwards is one of the pivotal players in the pass-catching game. And him being his arm being in that cast, I think, prevented him from being a weapon in the passing game. I think that put them at as much of a disadvantage, as Blake Corum being out. But also their starting tight end, after Eric All got hurt for the season, their backup, the other tight end that they used, I can't remember his name. Not the freshman Colston Loveland from Idaho, but the other one. Well, they used him and Eric All a lot because they like to use 12 personnel. They like to use a lot of 2 tight end sets.
Okay.
So I think that was in part one of the reasons they got so gimmicky. Was once their starting tight end got hurt and wasn't the same person, they couldn't go to 12 personnel.
Okay.
And there was already a drop off with Colston Loveland in that 12 personnel because he cannot block defensive. He can't even chip edge rushers at the same level. He's a true freshman. Tight end is a hard position to, walk into as a true freshman. So.
And especially to the blocking that's required.
But with all that said, Michigan was the better team. Michigan was the more talented team.
Okay.
TCU was
Okay,
better.
well, let's talk about the other game. There was another game.
Yeah, there was.
Georgia and the Ohio State University. Did the better team win that game?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No, even maybe. Tell me why.
Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. got hurt in the fourth quarter, and they didn't have to bracket the safety over. They didn't have to say the safety over to a receiver at that point. They already didn't have Jackson Smith-Njigba. I can't pronounce the Nigerian in Mecca, and I can't pronounce his name, but he's a dynamic receiver. He's going to be in the NFL. Okay. Their third receiver. But when you lose that level of attrition at one position, I mean, I think Ohio State just didn't have the horses at that moment in time. But give me Marvin Harrison Jr. healthy throughout the game. Yeah, you don't even need Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think Ohio State should have won that game. That was a CJ Stroud that, as a Lions enthusiast, that's the type of play I like to see from him. He never runs in the regular season. He just doesn't because he has something to prove. He wants to elevate his draft stock. He wants to win from the pocket. That's what draft scouts. That's what was the mark against Lamar Jackson and a lot of other mobile quarterbacks.
Okay,
but he ran.
So what was the key? What was the key or some key plays in that game?
I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. every time he caught a ball when he was double teamed.
Okay.
I mean, the key play to me was when the field goal kicker missed a 50-yard field goal to win the game.
Okay.
That was the key.
And he missed it badly.
He did. It wasn't like he didn't have a little. It wasn't like it would have went in if it was 45. He shanked it. He just he choked.
What did you think about the timeout right before the fake punt? Ohio State was gonna punt. They lined up to punt the ball, but then they actually faked it. But before the play was off, Georgia called a timeout. Were you impressed with that timeout?
Yeah, I thought it was a good timeout, but I mean, Kirby Smart had to know going into it that a fake was always possible because of what happened in the Ohio State-Michigan game, where when Michigan was up, they were up less than 2 touchdowns, and Ohio State was gonna fake. They were going to fake a punt, is what Ryan Day said post game, but they had the backup snapper in.
Yeah.
So he just snapped it directly to the kicker. He was supposed to snap it to the up men. So once Kirby Smart was made aware of that, if I knew that, I guarantee you Kirby Smart knew that. If he saw anything that looked even slightly different when it comes to signals or suspicions, I'm sure he had a guy dedicated to let him know. And it was a heads up timeout, and it was a smart timeout. And that's why Kirby, separated himself.
Georgia was down, I believe, 14 points at that time. And either 10 or 14. It was like 9 minutes to go in the game. Ohio State was up on their own 30-something-ish. Had they gotten that first down, game over, in my mind, because they were moving. Georgia couldn't stop Ohio State.
Yeah, until Martin.
Okay, JJ. Now we got TCU and Georgia.
We do.
Who got the better quarterback in that game?
Well, to finish up my compliment to CJ Stroud, as well as CJ Stroud played, Stetson Bennett played amazing himself. He threw for 390 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have the pick. He played amazingly well, and he's been playing pretty well ever since the second half of last season when they went on the national championship run. So Stetson Bennett he's worked himself into a second day NFL draft pick. He's gonna get drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round more than likely, maybe the 4th. And he's 25, he's undersized, walk on, et cetera, et cetera. But he's worked himself into that, and for that you have to give him credit. I think Max Duggan has more ability. He's bigger. He's a little bit faster. They're both pretty fast, but I think Max Duggan's a little bit more athletic. I think he has a higher ceiling, but I think Stetson Bennett is more likely to live up to his potential. So I'm going to say I would expect Georgia to have better QB play.
Okay, TCU. I mean, they fought Michigan toe to toe. Ohio State also fought Georgia toe to toe. Will one of these teams be out of gas, or did they give it all in the previous game and won't be able to show for this game? Which team is more likely to have that impact them? Or neither?
TCU, the team that hasn't been here before.
Okay.
They had 5 players that had participated in bowl games, I think.
Wow.
Before this year. So, I mean, maybe it was 5 players that won a bowl game, but I thought it was participated in. So
the point spread in this game started out pretty high. Was it
13 and a half?
Is that justifiable to you?
Yeah, I think Georgia's going to win by 21.
What makes Georgia that much of a better team?
Their players and their personnel and their coaching.
Okay,
I think Michigan.
Positions?
Every single position except for receiver. I would expect Georgia to outperform TCU. I think.
But defensively?
I mean, defensively, look, everyone knows Georgia's corners are supposed to be their weak point.
And what's TCU's strength?
They're one wide receiver.
Okay.
They're one wide receiver. But unfortunately for TCU, I said Georgia's corners were a weakness, but not their pass defense was a weakness for a reason. Their safeties are phenomenal, and I think you dedicate one safety to Quentin or whatever. I think that's all you really need. I think you can take them out of the game.
So you said by 21 points.
Yeah, and the other weapon that they like to utilize is Max Duggan's legs in the run game. I think Georgia has a lot more experience facing mobile quarterbacks this year than Michigan did.
Is Georgia as good this year as they were last year?
No team in the country is as good as Georgia was last year. No team in the country, I think, is as good as Alabama was last year. I think I've been saying this all year. It's a down year.
And yet,
that's the SEC that was down. The Big Ten was down. It's a down year, and I stand by that.
Georgia's not as good as they were last year.
They don't have to play any team from last year. They have to play teams this year.
Georgia isn't as good as they were last year, and yet they're going to win by 21 points in the championship game. You know, when the season started, I said there was no way Georgia would be anywhere near what they are. I've been more wrong about this than I have about anything when it comes to college sports that I can think of. But I'm not convinced that TCU will lose by 21 points. As a matter of fact, if you're a Georgia fan out there, don't sleep on TCU. Stranger things have happened. Me and TCU with the approach, us against the world. We'll see. So, JJ, you expecting a high-scoring game, low-scoring game? What you expect other than a lopsided Georgia win?
I kind of expect what I saw from Kansas State versus Alabama, where TCU will, give their best punch in the first quarter and it'll be close. They might even take a lead. But by halftime, I expect Georgia to be up by 10, and I don't expect it to be competitive in the second half. I would expect the final score to be 35-13.
What must happen in order for TCU to win this game?
Max Duggan has to be like a triangle offense between Max Duggan, his best receiver, and someone unexpected is gonna have to step up. Either another receiver, a running back, and someone else is gonna have to step up for TCU. But Max Duggan's gonna have to play out of his mind. Luckily, he's their best player. He's a quarterback, the most important position in sports. He touches the ball on every offensive play. So they have the opportunity. I think that's helpful. I think that was one of the biggest reasons TCU was able to beat Michigan was because Michigan, had a very horrific performance from the quarterback, and TCU's quarterback outperformed them.
Okay.
So I think they would need that, and they would need, on the other hand, Georgia's quarterback to not move up to his potential.
High scoring, low scoring?
35-13, whatever you want to call that.
Okay, and you giving the points, taking the dogs.
Oh, yeah.
America, there you have it. I would just to keep things interesting. I'll take those points.
Okay.
I'll take those.
I mean, you
points.
said that you wouldn't expect them to win by 13.5. You thought that was pretty high, so
I'm taking the points.
sounds good.
Anything you want to close with?
No, I would just say other bowl news. Good for Penn State. Good for Alabama.
What?
Penn State beat Utah in the Rose Bowl. Alabama beat Kansas State in the Sugar Bowl.
Okay.
Good for them. That's it's pretty
Also-
much the bowl wrap up. Maryland won.
Well, you didn't mention that powerful team in Florida, Central Florida.
UCF.
Yes, they beat the Heisman Trophy winner in the bowl game.
Oh, you mean Tulane?
Oh gosh,
Okay.
Gosh.
Yeah, Tulane did beat USC at the end.
why in the world am I thinking Central Florida? Tulane. I'm sorry, we didn't mention that. The Green Wave
Yeah,
knocked off USC.
yeah.
All right, JJ, that's it.
That's it.
WPS. We'll pick Suey.
Who day?
We out of here.
All right.